Come read with me. This is Violet, and I'm reading from Six of One, Half a Dozen the Other. It's my autobiography. And this is Power Struggles and Pride. It was now 1961, and Dee was 17 years old. Sibling rivalry was an ever ongoing struggle. Dee and Randall, who were second in the line of siblings, usually argued over who would be boss when the parents were not home. Randall was barely a year younger than her and thought because he was the oldest boy that he should be in control. Dee also felt because she was the oldest, she should be in charge. They had some pretty wild tussles over the struggle for power. When Randall's attempts at usurping Dolores' leadership failed, he resorted to what he knew best, tormenting the younger children. It was a malicious and sad attempt to gain some sort of control over his uncontrollable environment. I was his favorite mark, partly because I was so easily upset and slow with a good comeback. He would taunt and tease me until I had reached the utmost threshold of my endurance. Then, just when I was at the breaking point and ready to let out a wail, he would say something flippant and walk away. He was never happy, though, until he had pushed me to the point of complete exasperation. Was it meanness or just big brother capers? I had some power struggles with my brothers younger than me when it was my lot to be the oldest also. There were never any clear-cut rules, so we often made our own way however we could. There were power struggles, but there was also laughter. We learned to laugh at ourselves and each other. Teasing was pretty much a constant between us. No one was exempt. We all experienced the same name-calling, the ridicule, the torment from older siblings, and we all learned an important life skill. Don't take life too seriously. Dee, on the other hand, as the oldest and with more to gain or lose, struggled hard to rise above all the embarrassing things that accompanied living in our household. Dolores had sometimes earlier discovered boys. Not surprisingly, they had discovered her. Before we moved into the house in the country, Dee had what you might call a following. She had a real knockout figure, and she wasn't ashamed of it. She had beautiful, thick, curly red hair. She was still under the same restrictions as the rest of us were, at least while she was at the house. What she did away from the house was another matter. Dee was not what you would call a bad girl, but she really struggled with the stringent rules at home. She had her own ideas about what was best for her. She often went head-to-head with our parents concerning the stringent rules placed on her that she considered to be unreasonable. Dee was not blindly obedient like most of us. She wanted to fit in with her friends at school and hated the requirements to attend church so often. Mostly, though, like all teenage girls, she just wanted to be noticed by the young men. She would often take a blanket out to the front lawn and, in her dress of course, to rest in the sun. One young man in particular spent a lot of time driving by our house. It was odd that we had never seen him before she began her daily rituals of lounging on the front lawn. I remember this one in particular because he drove a red and white 1958 Chevrolet Nomad station wagon. It was a pretty classy car, and Dee was impressed. She timed her daily visits to the yard by his schedule and he by hers. Oddly enough, though she met him, they were never dated. She dated a young man who, for some unknown reason, stole a whole semi-truck loaded with garlic. Shortly after that, she met and began dating a young man from Clovis. By early spring, Dee was making plans for a June wedding, when Mama said, "I don't think so." Dee protested. "You can't get married in June," Mama said, "because I'm going to have a baby in June." Mama was a fairly large woman, and after several children, we could not tell when she was pregnant unless she told us. This impending birth was a surprise that Dee had not expected nor wanted. Dee was glad to be leaving. The wedding was moved back to May. When the news was announced that Mama was going to have another baby, 9-year-old Bert Jr. was really interested. He was, like the rest of us, really naive in the ways of life. He said, "How do you know when you're going to have a baby?" Mama, not wanting to get into the real hows and whys of it, said, "My tummy starts getting bigger." "I think I'm going to have a baby too," Bert said, as he quickly stuck out his own tummy. Eileen, the last of the Howell children, was born on June 21st. 1961, shortly following Dolores's marriage. She was blonde-haired and fair. Now we were a full dozen, 6 redheads and 6 blondes. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. To people who were unfamiliar to us, it was a pretty shocking revelation that our mother was barely 39 years old and already had 12 children. Like our father, it was a real source of misguided pride for us children. We delighted in telling people. There was a traveling preacher visiting our church. He told this joke to my mother. "What is the difference between an elephant and a matter baby?" Of course, Mama fell right into it. "What is a matter baby?" "Nuttin', honey. What's the matter with you?" he said. We kids thought that was hilarious. Of course, Mama was embarrassed and she had fallen for the joke. I suppose Mama with her auburn hair was a beautiful woman. It was not unusual for her to be whistled at when we were out shopping. I never understood it. I thought she was so old. People were especially impressed when they learned that there was a mere 17 years between Dee, the oldest, and Eileen, the baby. Though it was fun for us all, those births took their toll on Mama's health. After Eileen was born, the doctors told her seriously, "You cannot have any more children, or it will kill you." It was only then that Mama reluctantly consented to have surgery to prevent any further pregnancies. It had often been a bitter debate between her and Dee, because Dee inherited much of the work and the care created by all the younger children. She resented Mama's refusal to consider birth control. Mama would tell her that it was God's will for her to have children. Then, when Mama conceded to the advice of her doctor, Dee was angered because it conflicted with what Mama had told her all along. It did not matter that Mama's life might be on the line. Dee viewed it as hypocrisy. She was very verbal in her protestations. She determined she would not be around to care for the next one. Marriage was her way out. The preparation for Dolores's wedding was a big event, even in our family. Dee made her own wedding dress, while Mama set to work making dresses for the rest of us. Mine, Joyce's, and Fonda's dresses were all of a stiff type of chiffon, flocked with fuzzy raised flowers. Mine was pale green with pink flowers. One was pink with purple flowers, and one was blue with yellow flowers. The boys were probably given new shirts so that we all looked presentable for the big event. Oddly, I did not remember if Mama had a new dress. She usually had only one good dress. The wedding took place in the small Spanish-style church in Highway City that was just a couple of blocks from the famous underground gardens. Daddy had the remainder of a large roll of fiberglass fabric that he had used on the cabin cruiser boat that he had built. It was rolled out into the center aisle of the church for the bridal party to walk on. It was a nice touch. The white, shiny fiberglass looked almost like a silk runner. The wedding reception was held in the large yard at our house. It was at the reception that I first crossed paths with my future husband. I was 11 years old and he was 15, so we were primarily unaware of each other. He was at the wedding because he was the younger brother of Dee's friend, and I was one of many of the younger sisters of the bride. I did not see him there. There seemed like hundreds of people filling up the house and spilling out into the yard. We younger children were quite disinterested in the goings-on of the wedding reception. We were more concerned with capturing the June bugs, which were plenteous at that time of year. We dashed about between the adults while the June bugs buzzed around the porch lights and hit the window screens with a thud. We had some pretty huge June bugs there in the country. They were at least 1.5 inches long. They had light brown bodies and the color of burnt sienna with white stripes that covered their bodies from head to end. They had Dolly Parton eyelashes and made a great loud buzzing sound when they flew past us. They were particularly fond of the window screens, and once they landed there were extremely difficult to dislodge. We children, though, were more tenacious and determined than the bugs because we knew what hours of entertainment they would provide us when we finally caught them. Catching them was a 2-person operation, one child with a string in the hand and the other holding the beetle. We would tie a long piece of thread to one of the hind legs of the unfortunate and helpless beetle, then turn him loose to pursue the light in the window. The June bug was tethered securely to one end of the string, with the child holding the other end. The beetle made an excellent helicopter, flying around and around our heads. buzzing with a drone to match the ferocity of his flapping wings. This was great fun while it lasted, but it was only good as a night game. June bugs are particularly lazy in the heat of the day.